I think we need to be very precise about each case. What we do not want to do is, during the exercise of the law, to let people who have not complied with the law get away with not being punished, for lack of a better description. But at the same time, we need to make sure that in exercising the law, we do not punish people unjustly when they have followed the spirit or letter of the law or instructions or indications from the government. Therefore, for the past year and a half, I've consistently said that we, as a community, should, number one, respect the land law. Number two, examine the facts of each land case carefully in order to determine the proportionate distribution of fault to the lessee and, if applicable, to the government. One of the leading lawyers in town used a very good analogy of the European Cup. He said, the time of the match is 90 minutes, but then there will be injuries. There will be reasons why the game was stopped by the referee, in which case there is injury time to be added back on. And that, to me, is a simple and fair and accurate description of really what should happen. Unfortunately, the situation as it is now put us into a dilemma, put the government into a dilemma of having to resume the land regardless of whose fault it is. I think all of us will also remember that the chief executive in November last year and in April this year, on both occasions, indicated in public that there are situations where the fault did not lie entirely with the lessees. Unfortunately, it would appear that the way that the land law is now being interpreted does not allow the administration anyway to add on that injury time. And therefore, while following the law is always a legal thing to do, but whether it's proper and just, I think, is another issue. And I really do not think that it was the intention of the government or of the legislators to take away land when it is not the fault of the lessee. And therefore, there has to be a way to deal with this dilemma. And I think that is something which both the legislature and the SAR government have to work together on. And all of us in the community, we can only point out some of the inconsistencies that we see, but not being legal experts, it will be very difficult for us to come up with solutions. But certainly I don't think Macau wants to be known as a place where people's property rights are not being adequately protected by law. If we take a look at private housing in the past few years, the number of completions on an annual basis has really been very, very low. On average, about only 2,000 units were completed every year. And I remember that back in the mid-80s, when we first started gathering information or market data on number of residential units being completed every year in Macau, back in the mid to late 80s, there were around 6,000 units being completed every year. And if you take into consideration that for the past quarter of a century, the per capita income in Macau has really grown so dramatically. The demand for private housing obviously has also grown dramatically. And to have that small number of private houses, private residences being completed every year is by far very, very inadequate. The lack of land supply is really the root of the problem. And that's why I kept going back to the importance of having a robust and efficient land management system. It's not as if we do not have vacant land. We do have vacant land, but for various reasons, they are left undeveloped. Whether it's land law, whether it's the approval process, whether some of the developers have not been fulfilling their obligations, and I'm painfully aware of that as well, because that does happen. A total revamp, a total rethink of the land management system so that it suits Macau's development, not just now, but in the coming years. There are two major issues that Macau has to deal with. I think number one is, I think, the human resources issue, but that's something which is not related to land. Land, I think, is the second issue, but equally important issue, because without land, it will be difficult to go ahead with economic diversification. Without land, how do we expect our new industries to grow and survive and provide employment? Land and human resources, these are the two major factors of production facing any industry, facing any community. These are the two issues that Macau has to focus on.